time goes by very fast, and time is your most precious commodity. You're going to look back and you're really going to ask yourself, like, what did you do with your career? What did you accomplish when it's all said and done? Someone who saw something in me, took the time to talk to me and get me to think about it on that level, it really sparked something in me. And I knew I was plotting my course out.
Hi, my name's Karen Gilhooly, and I'm here as your host for Make Minutes Matter podcast. I'm joined today by Zara and Sean from Watson Young, an intellectual property firm located here in New York City. And we're going to talk today with both of these very interesting people about their career journeys, which has had many twists and turns. So maybe we'll dive right in. So both of you have had an opportunity to practice in a field of law that neither of you were particularly passionate about. And I think there are a lot of people out there, not just in law, but in multiple professions, that are kind of grinding away every day, not really feeling inspired. So tell me a little bit about your journeys and how you decided to actually get into the swim lane.
So I started in, 2017, our actual firm, but taking a step back, I was practicing in special education law. And I got into it because my youngest sister at the time, she had a mild learning disability. She had what's called auditory processing disorder. And my parents had to basically sue New York State for special services. And I went through the entire process with them. So the law firm that they ended up using, I interned for them. Okay. And then at the same time, my law school, they had a clinic for special education. So I said, oh my gosh, what a great opportunity. I have this clinic and I also can help my parents. And I also interned at the law firm. So I did that for my last year of law school. And the law firm ended up giving me an opportunity. So I took it and I worked for them for about 8 months. And during that time, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I got into it because I was very passionate about it. I said, okay, I'm going to be able to help other parents get special services for their children. I started working there. And again, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Just a very heavy caseload. The people were amazing. I learned so much, but I was not passionate about it. And I said, okay, I have two choices. I can either work for another law firm or start my own thing, start my own law firm. And at the time, I had a lifestyle blog. I was creating content. And I said, oh my gosh, I can help other content creators protect their work. I can go into intellectual property law. Yeah. So I started researching and I said, okay, this is it. This is for me. So I will never forget, I called Sean, who happened to be in Miami at the time. And I said, okay, Sean, this is it. I'm going to resign. I'm going to start, our own practice. And Sean said, we don't have any kids. We're not married. This is it. This is your opportunity. So I walked into.
I think I said no mortgage. We don't have a mortgage.
That's a good distinction there.
Yes. So I walked into the partner's office, who was a little intimidating. I'm going to be honest, but I told him, I said, thank you so much for the opportunity. Of course, thank you for helping my parents. My sister was able to get into, the school that they wanted to put her in, and he said to me, he's very, very stoic and serious man. He was like, to thine own self be true. Yeah. And it always stuck with me. And I'm so grateful that he said that. And he said, pursue your passion. Like, if you know this isn't for you, I will support you. So I left and I had no marketing experience, no advertising experience. I didn't know anything about starting a law firm. I had no one else that I could speak to about it. And I said, okay, I want to start my own firm, but how am I going to get clients? And I had my cell phone at the time. And I said, okay, I have Instagram. I'm going to start posting educational content. Let's see what happens. Great and idea. That's literally what I did. Instagram, that's the platform I used. It was very different from what it is now, thankfully, because all I had to do was post on my feed. So every single day I would post something educational about intellectual property law. Started getting referrals, started getting clients who found me on Instagram. And that's literally how I built the practice in 2017. And then in 2022, we had grown so much that Sean was able to join us.
Wow. Yeah. I want to get to your story but before I do, I just want to mention something that you said. So to thine own self be true. Yes. When I started my career, I had a chance to meet with the CEO of Citibank. And I thought it was, that I had there was something special that he'd picked me out, but it was actually one of these meet the new employee programs. So they pulled my name out of a hat. But in any event, It was a personal one-on-one interview. And at the end of the interview, he could sense that I was a little disappointed in the exchange. And he goes, "You want to know about my career success, don't you?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I do." He goes, "Well, come on over here." And he says to me, he goes, "Always be all in, all in." And that was it. And when I walked away, I thought, that's kind of a goofy thing to say. But now here I am many years later. And that was one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever gotten. You have to be all in. So all in, Sean.
Yeah, well, I guess I'll start in law school because I had found my passion in law school, which is intellectual property law. I had gotten invited to the Brooklyn Law Incubator Policy Program. It's a mouthful, but it was a visiting professor, Professor Askin from MIT. And he had started a startup clinic, basically. At that time, there was a lot of venture capital funding floating around and people were getting a lot of money. But they didn't unnecessarily have the connections in the legal field. So the school was bridging the gap. And so imagine being responsible as a student for these incredible projects. There was a client who was trying to build a walking bridge from Manhattan to Ellis Island.
Oh my goodness.
So floating. And
my
that's just one example of the kind of projects that we were working on at the time. It was amazing. Had a phenomenal experience. I did it for basically a year in law school, took the bar, and then I couldn't get a job in my chosen field, intellectual property. So I took the first thing that was willing to offer a paying job for, right? And I ended up in housing court. And housing court is not a nice place. It's where basically landlords go to either take back possession of the unit, the apartment. And here in New York City, you can imagine we have so many people living in apartments. It's densely populated. Or they're seeking non-payment. They're seeking compensation because people are behind on their rent.
Yeah.
I kind of rationalized it. I was like, you know what? This would be great litigation experience because I had no litigation experience and I was doing mainly transactional work. So maybe this would be a good idea. Boy, I didn't even know what I got myself into. The first day I was sitting down with Mary Beth. She was the partner at the firm. And she's like, "Oh, come on, Sean, I'll take you in." And we went into this dark, it almost looked like an abandoned building, a Brooklyn housing court. And it was abysmal. And I'm sitting there and it was a case called a post-eviction case. So they had already been evicted from the unit. And it's a husband and a wife. And the husband's like, "I want nothing to do with this unit. You can have it back." And the wife's like, "I'll take the unit back." And I'm looking around and I'm like, I thought this was a courtroom, not a circus. What is going on here? I basically convinced myself each and every day for close to 5 years to get up and experience what I felt like was torture because of the money. I had gotten a lot better as the months went on and I had gotten promoted, mainly I think because most people didn't want the job and I become proficient at it and good at it. But I also realized I was becoming jaded. It's not a normal experience to come in and meet people and you're meeting people on the worst day of their week. And these people are getting evicted and it becomes very hostile, very contentious. Even if, you know the case and eventually they'll be able to stay and there's programs for them, but they have no clue. They have no idea. They're just worried. They're scared.
Yeah.
I knew that I couldn't stay long. I didn't know how I was going to get out or when I was going to get out. I knew our business was growing. Zara's business was growing. I knew I was helping her, moonlighting as an intellectual property attorney at that time, helping Zara behind the scenes. But it wasn't until Judge McClanahan one day got off the bench and spoke to me directly. Actually, he called his court attorney after I had argued a motion to come and get me in the hallway.
Wow.
And I thought I'd done something wrong. I'm like, why is a court officer coming to get me right now?
Probably not a good feeling.
No, I'm like, what did I do, right? And he calls me back to chambers and he's like, "Listen, you have a lot of skill as a young attorney, but I really want you to consider what your 5-year plan is." And, because time goes by very fast and time is your most precious commodity. And the question then becomes, you're going to look back and you're really going to ask yourself, like, what did you do with your career? What did you accomplish when it's all said and done?
Yeah.
And it was not the first time I'd thought about it, but someone who saw something in me, who took the time to talk to me and get me to think about it on that level, it really sparked something in me. And I knew I was plotting my course out of housing court. COVID happened, and our business really took off. I think a lot of business moved online, and we were a virtual firm. And so for us, a lot of our clients come from all over the country, and they were looking for trademark attorneys that could help them protect their brands, whether it's goods or services. And so I saw it begin to scale the business. But there was something in me that was, that doubt, that fear. Like, you know what, maybe, we have a good job. It's a steady paycheck. Like, what if you have a bad month? What if you have a bad 2 months? What if? You have kids now. Now you have kids are in the picture. Do the responsible thing. It wasn't until 2022 that I had a conversation with HR after coming off of paternity leave. I had to make a decision whether or not I was going to go back. Yeah. And I decided, you know what? I'm not doing it. I'm going to take the risk. And fortune favors the bold, right? And I think that risk, I had to make that conscious decision to take the risk. That's why you get the reward, because like you said, you're all in. Yeah. Right? So I had to be all in, and it's been an amazing time experience. Our company has grown over 100% this year alone. Wow. It's been a fantastic journey. And hopefully it's a tale that, you have to be all in. You have to be willing to take the risk. And I told Zara, I was like, well, we'll just build as we fly, right? You know, take the leap of faith and build on the way down.
It's interesting. When we were doing our initial talk, I've thought a lot about that conversation since then. And one of the things you said then, and you just said it again today, is that you wanted to do the responsible thing for your kids. And I think that the most responsible thing that anyone can do is to show their kids what it feels like to be alive in the workplace. Because there's just so much out there right now, so many people who are literally not all in, but they feel chained to their paycheck, their titles, the lifestyle that they have, whatever. And because of that, quote unquote, security, and we know that nothing in this world is secure, but the perceived security, they don't take that leap to get out there. And I remember talking about the what ifing, and I think I mentioned to you that I come from a long line of champion what ifers. Yes. And so how did you overcome that? I mean, what was it that actually pushed you over the edge?
It was my wife.
Yeah, as usual. I'm very proud of you, Zara. Very good.
She's like, listen, just sit down and just do the cost benefit analysis and just think about it. You're leaving not just money on the table, but kind of like what you said, you're miserable. And what is that quality of life doing to your family?
That's right.
And coming home upset because you had a really bad day. I remember there was a long period of time, every Friday, for whatever reason, we would get into fights. And it's usually like the end of the week and it's like your happiest days. But I think I had just taken all the stress from that week and I just was over it. And, what you said is really profound, because I think as parents, we really want our kids to be alive and to find that passion. And, you'll preach that, you'll really impugn that upon them. But unless you're living that life, then kids learn by example. They need to see you living that life in order for it to really affect them. So, my wife, I have to give her credit for really being the ultimate risk taker.
I am a risk taker.
But I listened to your counsel, and it's been great. It's been
wonderful.
Great. Yeah.
So for you, Zara, not only just the risk of walking into a very nice job where you actually had personal family connections, and to have that conversation and to move on, but also to watch your husband. Now, what I find interesting about all of this is that you kind of fell into this. you wanted to do it. So she's living the dream and you're off, kind of slogging back and forth trying to get people evicted. That must have been, I can imagine the fights that were happening. You must have been I hate to say this, and maybe you've acknowledged it, but you had to have been a little bit jealous, and you had to feel a little bit bad. How was that between the two of you?
I felt like I had to sacrifice, like this masculine frame, like, like in order, I have to be the man and I have to take a sacrifice, but I can rationalize it. But as long as my wife is happy and my kids are secure in some way, then I'll just make it work. And I'll hold on to hope that maybe one day I'll get a break and I'll make the transition. Ultimately, in order to make the transition, you have to take the risk. And I could have left a long time ago, but it was the fear that had gripped me. But I was happy to see her do amazing things. Yeah, there were certain times I was jealous when she would be off at a really cool event and I'm like preparing rent demands and I'm like, where are you? You're at a rooftop cocktail party? Yeah, I'm going to go back to my cubicle now. I'll talk to you later.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just happy that it ended up the way it did.
Yeah.
The experience, I think if you are in this situation, you try to plan your exit strategy and you try and find out what skills can I take from my current role and position, because it may become useful later down the road. I was basically a litigator on steroids, because with these non-payment proceedings and these eviction proceedings, they're meant to go quick. They don't go quick now because the laws change where tenants have a lot more protection. So what was supposed to take 3 months can now take 2 years.
Okay.
But what I did learn was, most of my colleagues that came out of law school never saw the inside of the courtroom. They never had any trial experience. They never argued a motion before the judge because they were too junior to do it. So I knew for myself, okay, I have a lot of experience here. How can I now apply that to my current role? And we bring cases through pre-litigation, litigation. And because of the experience I have with that role, my prior role, I feel a lot more comfortable in the courtroom and making and talking the talk as a lawyer per se, because of that experience. So, it wasn't all bad. And I found housing attorneys, you have to have a sense of humor because some of these you have some real characters in that courtroom. I mean, some real characters. Even the judges are some characters. So you try and find a sense of humor in it all, and you try and cope with it and try and find the silver lining in it.
My husband actually my whole family was in the fire services in Chicago. So first responders. In the fire as a fireman. And that's very similar. You're looking at people on the worst days of their lives. And just to keep yourself sane, you have to find those bright spots, because if you can't, it can just tank and demoralize you. So I agree with you on that. Now over to you, my dear. So you're watching your husband kind of sweat it out. So what was that defining moment for you when you said to him, you know what, enough's enough. Let's kick this into high gear and get going.
We actually had that conversation. I literally said that enough is enough.
Really?
Yeah. We went to a park. There's a beautiful park near us. It's called Forest Park. It's the third largest park in New York. And we took a walk. Chloe was with us. Our youngest was with us. And I said, Sean, you have to make a decision. Like, I actually kept saying that to him, like, you have to make a decision, because he kept getting phone calls from HR asking, Sean, when are you coming back? Like, we need to hear from you. If we don't hear from you by, I think it was Friday or something like that. They gave him a deadline.
The phone call.
Yeah. I mean, they had set some, deadlines.
Right.
Yeah.
And I said, you have to make a decision. And I basically just kept telling him, the risk versus the reward.
Yeah.
Right? You have to just make that decision. And there's so much upside to what we do. The sky's the limit for us. So I just kept reframing it in that way. And I think it was the last call that you got from HR that you were like, okay, I'm not going to come back, basically.
Yeah, I actually had to talk to the managing attorney, and I had a conversation with him. And he was like, so talk to me. And we had an honest conversation. I was like, I'm not coming back. And he knew about our firm and what I was doing it on a lot of cases on the side with Zara and building Watson Young. And we had a whole branding rebrand. But even after the rebrand, I still wasn't ready to take the leap, right? Even after we do this huge launch, I'm like, you know what, maybe I can stay for, just 6 months, just 8 months, just 12 months. Just hang on.
And you can hang on your whole career.
Right.
And you're so fortunate to have had someone that cared for you, loved you, respected you enough to really give you that push out of the nest. Because again, many people out in the world don't have that. So I think your story is quite inspirational for those who are stuck and really need to make a move. What a great conversation with Zara and Sean from Watson Young. Stay tuned for part 2.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Make Minutes Matter. If you haven't done so already, please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast on YouTube or click the follow button on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And let me know what you thought of today's conversation by following us on Instagram at Karen Gilhooly 1. That's Karen, Karen, Gilhooly, Gilhooly, and the number 1. Let's make every moment in your career truly matter. Have a great day.